So, after a rather disappointing showing for Battlefield 5 at Gamescom, where it did become very, very clear, thanks to the dislike button on my video, that the community wasn't particularly fond of the new content that was on display, we're going to talk about something that I think is much more exciting today. We're going to talk about the Metro remake coming to the game in the next month or so, Operation Underground. Now, despite multiple attempts from myself and a couple of other game changers to convince EA to let us record the map, we weren't actually allowed to do so. So for this video, I'm going to cut in a bunch of Battlefield 3 Metro and Battlefield 4 Metro gameplay just to give you some kind of context. I've had the chance to play this Underground map twice now, once at EA Play in June a couple of months ago, and then just last week at Gamescom. And the difference between the two builds, I think, was quite profound. The most recent version is a much more polished map overall, but according to DICE, it's still not quite finished yet, which might be the reason why they didn't want us to record it. I'm going to try and walk you through the map now and give you as much information as possible. We played the map on the Rush game mode, which gives us access to the full length of the map, and without completely spoiling the video, I think the work that the DICE team has done for this map is really, really good. I really like this map so far. Starting things off, and as far as I know, this happens at the beginning of every round of Operation Underground, a JB2 or V1 rocket descends onto the map and it blasts open the Metro below the streets. You might remember in Battlefield 3's version of Metro that two jets fly over the top after you blow up the first set of MCOMs and they blast open the Metro, so I think that's a nod towards those previous versions of the maps. Now, I can't 100% confirm this, but the map appears to be a German city. DICE wasn't telling us if it was a German city, but it definitely had that Germanic feeling to it, and there were lots of Iron Cross red banners hanging everywhere, so I'm just going to say that this is a German-controlled city at the moment, although we don't know where it's actually placed. As the Allies, you spawn into that destroyed mess that's been left after the rocket attack, and the first set of MCOMs in the rush mode, they're nestled within some of those half-destroyed buildings. A main street draws a line down towards the blast site, and that's where the play zone opens up somewhat. The street is lined with lots of cars and soft cover points, but that makes it less than ideal as a route to attack because at the other end of the street is the defender spawn. There are two outer lanes that you can use either side of the street to approach those MCOM locations. That splits up the action quite nicely, and because the focus appears to be on those two outer lanes, sometimes the attackers can get down that street without being sniped by an enemy who's sitting at the end of it. The emphasis does really appear to be on those two wider flanking points. The actual blast location into the Metro opens up line of sight massively, making the location quite dangerous for attackers who stray too far forward from the bomb sites. Defenders spawn just inside the blasted Metro, and they can work their way up into the street and get themselves in some cover within those destroyed buildings. Now, from this description that I've just given you, you're going to notice then that Underground isn't a one-to-one recreation of the Metro maps from past games. In Battlefield 3 and 4, you started in the park, and then you moved into the Metro Underground from there. Here on Operation Underground, you start in the streets. Underground is definitely more of a reimagining of the Metro idea, and that becomes more apparent as you enter the Metro below the streets, and you start fighting in those tight corridors under the ground. The Metro area of Underground, it strikes a really nice balance between what previous Metro maps have actually done and opening up the gameplay a little bit more. 3 different lanes can be used to enter the Metro from the attacker side of the map, but the lanes are quite a little bit shorter than what they used to be, and that makes that run into the Metro zone a lot less dangerous for attackers, but it condenses the gameplay into the Metro area itself, rather than gameplay getting stuck in the lanes that bring you into it. The central lane brings you right into the track area and the platform area. That does look very similar to the Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 versions of the map, but obviously we've got updated visuals here to bring it in line with the time period. We've also got a different colour palette down here now. It's not blue overload anymore, yellow is the more dominant colour. The two side lanes, they connect into the service tunnels either side of the tracks, and these are the brand new flanking routes that DICE has implemented onto the map. In my experience, just 3 rounds of Rush by the way, they did work quite well in splitting up the gameplay and drawing the action out of that central platform area where things can get very, very cramped. One side of the tunnels is quite open, and it kind of looks like it's under construction, giving you a wider area to fight in. And the other side, these look like proper service tunnels that workers would use to move along the tracks. Different rooms linked together that provide lots of props in those rooms to give you cover. Now, one really cool part of this side of the map is the tunnels themselves, or at least one of them, can be flooded. A broken water pipe that sits on the wall, it fills the tunnel with water so that if you're trying to use it when it's flooded, you have to swim through it, which completely changes the gameplay. And as an attacker, I barely used that tunnel whilst it was flooded, but of course I gave it a go just to see what it was like. And at some points you do actually have to dive under the water because there is no room above the water level. It's completely submerged down there. So it definitely changed up gameplay, and as an attacker, it stopped me using that route, which definitely changes up the gameplay. I think this is an automated function of the map, however. I couldn't find a trigger, or at least whilst it was happening, I couldn't find a way to get rid of the water myself, and I just waited for the water level to drop back down. I don't know if it is player activated, I don't know if it's not, but it didn't feel like it was. Whatever the case may be, it definitely caught me by surprise. I was running down the tunnel at one point, and suddenly my character was forced to start swimming. It was quite confusing the first time it happened. Now, down here in the tunnels, fortifications are a big part of this map. Defenders are able to build up sandbag walls to block off different routes through the tunnel, and different exits from the tunnel as well, and that's going to slow down enemies that are trying to get to the different bomb sites. In the Conquest version of this map, I think these are going to become even more valuable as you try and maintain control of that flag that's placed down below in the tunnels. If you're able to restrict access to the capture zone as much as possible, you're going to bleed down more tickets and hopefully you'll win the round. But one really nice use of fortifications though, and a nice change from the Metro maps of past, is the ability to build wooden paths on top of the trains on the track. That gives you a little bit of elevation. And also above the track, the staircase sections that enable you to cross the platform below, that section now has windows in it so that you can look down onto the tracks, which is great for defenders who can then look down on the attackers trying to move in, but it's also a curse. The attacking team are going to be able to see you moving around up there. In previous versions of Metro, people couldn't see you. Coming out of the Metro tunnel area, the ticket office is still here on Operation Underground, although it is somewhat smaller of a section from the one that we're used to from past Metros. It's not as open as it used to be, and the action can flow outside and back in a much more seamless way now. It really feels like with a lot of these changes that the team are working on for this map, they've gone out of their way to try and remove some of those ridiculous choke points that the maps had in the past games. It gives you more choice as a player in where you can go, and in some scenarios, like here in the ticket office, they've completely changed the section to remove some of those choke points, and of course that removes some of the frustration, so I'm all for those kind of changes. And then finally, the last section of the map, it's a large government building. It sits outside the Metro area, back up in the streets. It looks really impressive. It's clearly an asset that's been built solely for this map so far. It sort of looks like the stronghold for the German defenders on the map. It's covered in fortification positions and machine gun nests, so you can expect that last push to be a proper standoff between the two teams. Overall, I think Operation Underground works really, really well, and for sure it's going to be a map that's going to interest a lot of different Battlefield 5 players. After the reveal of Lofoten Islands and Provence, which was gameplay we did get to capture at Gamescom, I was really quite underwhelmed by those maps, and it's clear that the wider community was very underwhelmed as well. I think some people were quite angry, in fact. those are maps that were supposed to be for the 5v5 game mode that have now been repurposed for other game modes like Squad Conquest, now that the 5v5 mode has officially been cancelled. If you didn't know, 5v5 is not coming to Battlefield 5 anymore. They completely got rid of it, and there may be some work done in the future to maybe add a 5v5 mode once rental servers go live, but the 5v5 mode that was data mined to hell by Temporal, that is not coming to Battlefield 5. Those maps, though, I don't think they're the kind of infantry-only experience that Battlefield players really want, whereas a reimagining of the Metro map, that is what players want. It's a map that I think people will want to play as soon as it launches, and I think it's a map that it's going to keep people coming back for more, just like previous versions of Operation Metro did for Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. It's going to arrive around the same time as rental servers, which means I think we're going to see a lot of 24/7 underground-only 3,000 ticket conquest servers popping up for people who just want to play that grindy experience. And you know what? Right now, Battlefield 5 needs this kind of map. The game isn't in a particularly good place. The underground map is a map that will create a little bit of buzz for the game. It's going to attract some attention. I think most gamers know what a map like Metro does for Battlefield games. It just has this ubiquitous appeal that people like to talk about. If you talk about Battlefield 3, most people will think of Operation Metro. If you think about Battlefield 4, people will probably think of Operation Locker. Battlefield 5, there isn't really a map that you think of for Battlefield 5, I don't think. And this map here could be it for the time being, and that's why I think if there is any kind of buzz, it could get people coming back to Battlefield 5. Despite the fact, at the moment, that DICE doesn't feel this map is completely finished, they think there's a little bit more polishing left to do, the map is definitely up there in terms of quality with the likes of Mercury, which is the quality level that we should be expecting from a AAA title like Battlefield 5. If Operation Underground is any indication of the quality of content that we can expect moving forwards for this game, then I will become excited again as a Battlefield 5 player. It's certainly not a map for the vehicle players out there, but the Pacific update is really not that far away now, and we know that's where vehicle players are going to get their fix. I just really hope that this is now finally the start of a turning point for Battlefield 5, because Lord knows this game properly needs to turn itself around. But there you go. Thanks very much for watching today. Leave me your thoughts on Operation Underground down below in the comments section. Let me know what you're thinking. And this map is due to launch in like the next month to month and a half. I'm not 100% sure when it is launching, but the indication I got from Gamescom is that this thing is nearly ready to go. But until next time, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.